Chapter 6. Where Shadows End. Warmth reached her before consciousness did. Not the brittle, watchful heat of a guarded fire, but something deeper, steady, surrounding, kind. The scent of clean linen and lavender drifted through the air, mingling with the faint crackle of a hearth that burned not out of duty, but comfort. Eliza lay unmoving upon a wide bed, dressed in soft creams and pale blues. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, not sealed shut but drawn open with gauze curtains that breathed gently with the morning air. The room was spacious, uncluttered, alive. At her bedside stood an elderly woman, her silver hair pinned neatly at the nape of her neck, her movements slow, but practiced. Her name was Constanza, and her hands, though lined with age, were steady with purpose. She dabbed carefully at the bruises along Eliza's shoulder, murmuring softly under her breath. "Poor child," Constanza whispered, not to anyone in particular. "You've carried too much pain for one so young." A warm cloth pressed gently against torn skin. A salve, her own mixture of herbs and oils, was applied with care, never lingering longer than necessary. There was no hurry, but no indifference either. Behind her, standing near the hearth, was Lord Julian Whitmore. He had not slept. His coat had been discarded hours ago, boots exchanged for house shoes. But his posture remained rigid, as though fear alone kept him upright. His dark hair was still damp from the storm, though now neatly combed back. His eyes never left the bed. "She hasn't stirred?" he asked quietly. Constanza shook her head, her voice gentle but assured. "No, my lord. But that is not a bad thing. Her body has chosen rest. Let it." Julian exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "She was bleeding, bruised, barefoot in the storm," he said, anger flickering beneath the concern. "No one comes to my door like that unless they are running from something monstrous." Constanza met his gaze, unafraid. "And now she has stopped running." He turned back toward Eliza, jaw tightening. "I've sent for the physician," he said. "He should be here already." "As you wish," Constanza replied, though her smile suggested she already believed the girl would survive. "But mark me, she is strong, stronger than she knows." Outside the chamber, the castle lived. Footsteps echoed in the halls, not hurried, not fearful. Laughter drifted up the stairwell, soft and genuine. Somewhere below, a maid hummed as she worked. A door opened and closed without a guard's barked command. This was Whitmore Castle. Here servants did not lower their eyes. They spoke freely. They smiled. In the kitchens, bread was being baked. In the east wing, windows stood open to the morning sun. No doors were locked without reason. No rules whispered like threats. This house did not watch. It welcomed. The physician arrived swiftly, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a worn leather bag slung over his shoulder. He bowed briefly to Julian before moving directly to the bedside. "She's exhausted," he said after a thorough examination. "Malnourished, bruised. Some cuts will scar, but nothing fatal." Julian's shoulders eased for the first time. "She will wake?" "Yes," the physician replied. "And when she does, she will need patience and safety." Julian nodded once. "She has both." Constanza smiled as she replaced the cloth on Eliza's brow. And for the first time in longer than Eliza could remember, the world waited for her to wake. Not with expectation, not with ownership, but with care. Unconscious still, Eliza breathed softly, and though she did not yet know it, she had crossed the threshold not just of a castle, but of a life where shadows no longer ruled. Eliza woke to quiet. not the suffocating stillness of Blackwood Manor, where silence pressed like a warning, but a living hush, broken by the soft pop of a fire and the distant murmur of voices below. Her eyes fluttered open. The ceiling above her was pale, carved with gentle detail. Light filtered in through unshuttered windows. For a panicked heartbeat, she forgot where she was. Then she tried to move. Pain answered. She inhaled sharply. "Easy." The voice was male, calm, close, but not looming. Eliza turned her head, heart racing. A man sat in a chair beside the bed, far enough away to give her space. He rose slowly when he saw her eyes open, as if afraid a sudden movement might frighten her back into unconsciousness. "You're safe," he said quietly. She searched his face for deception out of habit. There was none. Dark hair, neatly kept, a strong build softened by stillness rather than dominance. His eyes, grey, she thought, watched her not as something to be claimed, but as something fragile. "Where?" Her voice cracked. "My home," he replied. "Whitmore Castle." She tensed instantly, fingers curling into the blankets. He noticed. Silence stretched. She waited for the terms, the rules, the price. They did not come.
"I found you at my gates," he continued, voice steady. "You had collapsed. You were injured. That is all I knew." He paused, then said something that made her breath hitch. "I did not touch you." The words were not defensive. They were intentional. Eliza swallowed. "You could have turned me away." "Yes," he said simply, "but I didn't." She studied him again. The way he stood slightly to the side, never blocking her view of the door. The way his hands remained visible, open. "I am Julian," he said then, inclining his head, not a bow, but a courtesy. "Lord Julian Whitmore." Her pulse thudded. "What is your name?" he added gently. "My name's Eliza." She paused, then continued. Eliza Hawthorne," she stammered. "You're welcome to Whitmore Castle. If you wish to leave when you are healed," he went on, "you may. If you wish to stay until you decide what comes next, you may do that too." He was curious about how she came to be unconscious at his gates, but didn't want to push her for answers just yet. He believed she'll open up about her ordeal when she was ready. He met her gaze fully now. "You're safe here, Eliza. No one will come for you while you are under my roof." Her eyes burned. Her breath trembled as she let it out. For the first time since the night her father spoke her fate aloud, the future did not feel like a sentence. Julian stepped back, giving her the space he had promised. "I'll have Constanza return with broth," he said softly. "Rest. We'll speak again, only if you wish." As he turned toward the door, Eliza spoke without thinking. "Thank you." He stopped, looked back. "You're welcome," he said. "And Eliza." Her name on his lips was not possession. It was acknowledgement. "You are not a guest here," Julian Whitmore said. And then he left her with the firelight and the fragile, terrifying beginning of trust. Eliza woke again to laughter. At first it startled her. Her body tensed instinctively, bracing for the sharp rebuke that usually followed any sound of joy. But none came. The laughter only grew, soft, familiar, unguarded. It drifted in through the open door. No, you're doing it wrong, the young woman's voice said, teasing. You stir with the spoon, not against it. A man scoffed. I've stirred stew since before you were born. Yes, the woman replied cheerfully, and it's been lumpy ever since. A low chuckle followed. Then footsteps. Constanza appeared first, carrying a tray. Behind her trailed a young maid with flushed cheeks and a grin she made no attempt to hide. She's awake again, Constanza said over her shoulder, pleased. Well, that's good, the younger maid replied brightly. Cook says she must be a miracle if she survived his broth. Oi, came the offended reply from the corridor. That broth has healed soldiers. And nearly killed 3 servants, someone else added. Eliza stared. No one hushed them. No one looked over their shoulder. Constanza set the tray down gently. This is Maribel, she said, nodding to the younger maid. She talks too much. Maribel curtsied exaggeratedly. Only when the castle allows it. Constanza snorted, which is always. Maribel's eyes flicked to Eliza. Her smile softened immediately. Welcome, she said simply. Not my lady, not miss, just welcome. Eliza's throat tightened. I'll fetch fresh water, Maribel added, already turning away. And tell cook not to poison her. Mind your tongue, Constanza called after her, though her eyes twinkled. From the doorway, Julian Whitmore watched the exchange, arms crossed loosely, not in authority, but ease. Careful, he said mildly to Maribel. If cook hears you, you'll be on bread duty. Maribel grinned at him. Only if you tell him. Julian's mouth curved. I won't. She beamed and vanished down the hall. Eliza's voice came out barely above a whisper. They speak freely. Julian turned to her. Yes, he said. I encourage it. Her fingers tightened in the sheets. They aren't afraid. No, he agreed. They're home. She absorbed that in silence. In Blackwood Manor, servants moved like shadows, eyes downcast, steps measured, voices swallowed. Joy there had been dangerous. Laughter invited attention. Here it seemed to invite more laughter. Constanza adjusted the blankets. Drink slowly, she advised. Eliza obeyed. Julian remained by the door, not crowding her space. You'll hear noise here, he said gently. Music sometimes, arguments, ridiculous debates about stew. A pause. If it ever becomes too much, he added, you may shut the door. Her eyes lifted to his. No one will mind, he said. Her breath hitched. That was the difference. Not just warmth, not just kindness. Choice. From the corridor, Maribel's voice rang out again. My lord, cook wants to know if you prefer thyme or rosemary tonight. Julian sighed theatrically. It's stew. It will taste the same.
It will not, came several voices at once. Eliza's lips trembled. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It was small, fragile, almost surprised, but it was real. Her smile stirred something in him he hadn't felt in years. A quiet warmth spread through his heart. She's got a beautiful smile, he thought. He had seen smiles before, plenty of them, but this one was different. Fragile, earned, as if it had survived something terrible to reach the surface. He looked away a moment too late.
I'm glad, he said, clearing his throat softly, that you're finding reasons to smile here. Her gaze lifted to him, wary but curious. When your wounds have healed a little more, he continued, carefully casual, Constanza would be happy to show you the castle, the kitchens, the servants' quarters, wherever you wish. Constanza nodded at once. I'll make sure she sees the good parts first, she added dryly. And the pantry. A ripple of laughter followed. Julian allowed himself a faint smile before adding, and if you feel up to it, I'd be eager to show you the lands as well. The stables, the farms. No obligation, only if you wish. Eliza hesitated. I'm curious, he admitted gently, meeting her eyes, about how you came to my gates that night. Her fingers tightened in the blanket. But, he said at once, voice firm but kind, I won't ask you to speak of it until you're ready. Or ever, if you decide not to. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was safe. Eliza's strength returned in fragments. First, the ability to sit without trembling. Then, the courage to walk the length of the chamber unaided. And finally, the quiet realization that she was no longer bracing for pain at every sound. Whitmore Castle did not demand her attention. It allowed her space. Constanza kept her promise. The tour began slowly, no rushing, no overwhelm. Eliza was introduced not as a curiosity, but as a guest. This is Thomas, Constanza said, gesturing to a broad-shouldered guard who bowed politely. He watches the north gate and sings terribly off-key. I do not, Thomas protested. You do, said 3 voices at once. The kitchens were warm and alive, pots simmering, bread cooling, herbs hanging from beams. A cook pressed a piece of apple tart into Eliza's hands before anyone could stop him. For strength, he said gruffly, and because Constanza will scold me if I don't. The servants smiled at her, spoke to her, asked her nothing she wasn't ready to give. By the time the tour ended, Eliza's chest ached, not from pain, but from something unfamiliar. Belonging. A few days later, Julian found her in the courtyard, sunlight warming her hair. If today isn't too much, he said, I thought you might like to see the land. She nodded. The stables smelled of hay and leather. Horses shifted and snorted softly as Julian spoke to them with quiet affection. Beyond them stretched fields and rolling pasture, cattle grazing, workers calling to one another without fear. They walked until her steps slowed. At a narrow stream bordered by smooth stones and tall grass, Julian stopped. Here, he said, we can rest. He spread a cloth on the grass with practiced ease and produced a basket. Inside were fruits, roasted lamb wrapped in linen, a small pie, and a bottle of wine. Eliza stared. You planned this? He smiled faintly. I hoped. They ate slowly, the sound of water murmuring beside them. For a long while, neither spoke. Then Eliza did. She told him everything. The debt, the marriage, the manor that watched, the rules, the cellar, the storm. Julian did not interrupt. His jaw tightened once, only once, but he kept his voice steady when she finished. You were brave, he said quietly. She shook her head. I was desperate. Sometimes, Julian replied. They look the same. The stream flowed on. Above them the sky was wide and unthreatening. And for the first time since her life had been bargained away,
Eliza felt something settle gently inside her. Not safety alone, but the fragile beginning of being seen.